when you're tenacious and you're in it and you're doing it, you just love it. That's where I'm at. I love what we get to do, and I love serving the people.
A wise man once said to me, how we deal with Plan B defines who we are. I've tried to adopt that to the point it's not going to go the way I think it will in my head. So I got to be able to roll with the punches.
This is a live animal that we're working with. This is something that is constantly changing.
I think seeing it from your peers, because I can walk around my shop and everything's perfect, right? It's just the way I want it. And then somebody else looks at it and says, that's messy.
We've always been so focused on customer service that we've kind of created our own beast. People expect it, but we hate to disappoint customers.
Sometimes losing the wrong customers is better than keeping them.
We are in customer service business. We just don't fix cars. Some people I've heard it referred to as the hospitality business. That's what we are in.
Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. Today we've got 3 different shops represented with 4 total people. We're going to be talking about succession planning. What's next after you leave the shop? We have small businesses that are attached to our employees, to our communities, to our families. And sometimes it's just up and leave, I suppose. But I think more times than not, our hearts are in it. We want to make sure that things are taken care of for those after us. And that doesn't necessarily mean retirement. Maybe that means just changing to a different location. But planning for the future is part of what we're going to be talking about today. Succession planning, helping the shop continue after you've started to remove or completely removed yourself from it. With that, I'd like to introduce our great guests. We've got Mike from Grinnell. Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your shop?
Make me go first. I'm the rookie here.
That's all right.
We are Grinnell Firestone is our store. We're in rural Iowa, town of about 10,000. And we have 6 bays, 6 employees. My wife and I are active in it. We process about 500 cars a month. Half our business is tires and half is automotive repair.
Interesting. Would you like to see more be auto repair, or would you like to see, or you're fine with the split middle?
It's worked for us. I'm second generation. My parents started it in 71, and it was always a tire shop. Then when the 80s came and everybody wanted to sell tires, Costco, Walmart, Farm and Fleet, we decided we needed to do something else. So we tried to go with kind of a one-stop shop, complete car care mentality, and went into automotive repair.
Nice. How many years ago was that?
It was in the 80s at some point.
Yep. Okay. Got it.
I grew up in it until I went to school. It didn't work out. So I went back to the family business and bought my parents out.
I truly love that about this space. There's so many families in the space. This particular episode also marries up nicely with an episode that we did in July of 2024, episode 7. We had on a group of newbies to the industry. They had taken over the business from their families. And so one actually had been on, did that transition about 5 years prior. 2 were knee deep in it at the moment. And the 4th was thinking about doing it next year. It was a really good conversation. And after you've listened to this episode, make sure that you go back and check that one out too. Steve, why don't you tell us about you?
Steve Finzel, Finzels Master Tech in Terre Haute, Indiana. Terre Haute, I consider pretty rural, 60,000 people in the immediate area, but there are small towns around the outside that we pull from. Recently went from a campus operation to 14,000 square feet under one roof. We have 22 employees and we see about 600 cars a month. We have 14 bays under one roof.
Okay. Nice. Kelly and Lee?
Hello, this is Kelly and Lee Weatherby. We're in Mesa, Arizona. Our town has 150,000 people. We're a destination shop, so our marketing goes pretty far wide. We live 11 miles away from our shop. We currently have 11 employees. We recently sold a building and downsized as part of our retirement.
We had about 37,000 square feet with 22 bays, and now we downsized, selling off 2 buildings, and went down to 8 bays.
Okay.
That was a bit of a transition for us in the last year.
Productivity went way up.
Yeah.
Enough. Car count is
roughly around $240, $250 a month.
Okay.
Average repairers are around $1,000.
Okay. Got it. And so you said you live 11 miles away from your shop, but guys, if you're listening in, we need to give a shout out to these two because They're currently celebrating their anniversary week, and they decided to take a vacation, and yet they're logging into this podcast from their vacation in Hawaii. You'll be fine. So thank you so much for coming here. It's so early in the morning there. We talked a little bit about this before the show started. You actually touched a little bit about the purposes of succession planning, considering retirement. I would imagine that's the most typical reason for saying, okay, it's time for me to plan what's next. Was the selling of those buildings a part of your original plan?
Yes.
All right.
We bought our building. We expanded our building. And then, so in '06, so almost 20 years ago, was our setting the groundwork for the exit strategy. And the exit strategy, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in this time that we're going to be together. It went a U-turn a bit. And so I think that'll be a very interesting conversation for those who are listening and kind of know that it doesn't always go the way it's planned, as in life in general, right?
Well, it was similar to what Mike talked about earlier. You set the business up for sale, things come through, and then it doesn't necessarily come to fruition. And so you think, okay, what kind of things either hampered it or what could we have done differently? The beautiful thing is, if you're working a plan, continue working the plan. Don't give up because, something falls through or doesn't come to fruition the way you thought it was. Most of the time, the best laid plans, are going to have changes. And inevitably, you just got to be able to roll with it. All of us, it sounds like, have at some point worked in our businesses. And you even alluded to this, Brad, you do build a camaraderie, a fondness. You're with your employees and the culture that you build. It's a family. Our Philly motto is friends serving friends, but it's really families serving families.
I like that. Now, you've been planning it for a while, right? This succession planning. And it wasn't just about, okay, we're going to sell on X date. We're going to sell these buildings on Y date. We're going to sell the business on X date. There was a lot more to it. And why was there a lot more to it?
Lee had a health incident, and we can talk about that in as much detail as you want. We are open book, just like Steve said with his. That was really, as Lee was at home, I said, I think it's time. It was good with the economy and the way it was, we could do well. It was good timing with real estate at that time. Buildings were selling around us pretty quickly. There weren't that many around us for sale. The people, it actually worked out really wonderful because that building is close to the building we're in currently. And the one that bought it is not auto repair. So that was also attractive. So it wasn't going to impede our customer car
Please
count.
install a competitor right here.
That was a huge blood thing. They just were going to use it as a warehouse, basically. So we took all of our lifts. We cleaned that thing out like it never was an auto repair shop, painted it, and it was good to go. That was a huge blessing for us. But it really was maybe prompted originally by the health incident.
Did you do any succession planning prior to the health incident?
We've done a ton. And there's a part of the story that Kelly maybe didn't mention, and that is it's a big animal. As Steve alluded to earlier, you've got a lot of things going on under one roof. We had 3 roofs that we were working under basically on one site, one location. Mm-hmm. When you're tenacious and you're in it and you're doing it, you just love it. That's where I'm at. I love what we get to do, and I love serving the people. I've always been, a little more space. We thought it was great investments, and it was. But at this time, we had to, once again, this is one of those adjustments that you make. This is one of those pivots. You look at it and you go, what's going to be easier? I basically out of the shop for over a year. All right. Kelly and I didn't report to the shop for over a year. What is going to be easiest for our people to manage? It's certainly not going to have the spread because it was effective, it just wasn't easy to manage. So we decided it makes sense to go ahead and now make this basically cash out and go debt free, on the buildings and on the business. That was what we did.
Okay. Interesting. And Steve, you said you had a campus type setup, and now that you're all under one roof, what did that change look like?
It was directly related to succession plan. Your typical 3-bay Marathon gas station, that's kind of where it started. I bought it from Marathon, mirrored 3 bays on the other side, bought property to the north, and built a 72 by 60 pole barn. We had 13 bays in 2 different buildings. It's really hard to manage, like getting the phone system here, where parts are delivered, they're supposed to be here, all kinds of stuff. I knew that if I was going to sell, I could build the business as big as I could, but nobody would want an old marathon station and a pole barn that had no value. So it wasn't set up for what I was thinking the big box, people would buy. We were almost at that point, like 1.8, just shy of $2 million shop. So I was looking to attract a buyer. So that's why I thought it was relevant to build a building where it would match what the business is so that you could manage it easier. It was more receptive, whether a tire type business came in or like a Firestone Goodyear, somebody like that, or a Pep Boys or whoever was going to buy it out. Also a big deal right now is private equity getting into buying automotive businesses because of the run that we've had lately. People are willing to invest in automotive, which I think you will all agree in the last 10 years anyways, the net numbers that we're able to produce are amazing. That's why I think it was important for me to get under one roof and make myself have some type of appeal to the street for a buyer.
Okay. And you were trying to appeal to a particular buyer, or were you trying to keep it open?
I was going to keep it open at that point. I had a couple different things going on with like, what would I do with the old property and things like that. So there was that going on. But I really felt like at that point when I built that building that there was a couple buyers in the marketplace that already had come to me and said, we'd like to buy you. And I was just like, I'm not ready yet, still wanting to work. But I knew what their numbers were. They were multi-location people that was just going to buy another location. So that's kind of how I was setting the table up. And then, of course, I had a son 2.5 years ago that decided to come into the business like what Mike said he had. And so we had to completely take a U-turn and redo our succession plan.
All right. So now he's not interested in selling to that big box. Did you bring it into one campus with him in management?
No, he was not involved. I was building the building, doing the deal, getting myself prepared to sell. And he actually approached me as like, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing spending this kind of money on this? And then in his industry he was in, he didn't see the writing on the wall. So what about me? And I'm like, that would be a great option.
That's really interesting. In your situation, you grew up in the family business. You mentioned that you stepped away for a little bit. How long were you away? At college?
Yeah, a couple years.
Right.
I wanted to be in law enforcement and tried that gig, but I was a young father and the weekends and evenings was not conducive to raising kids. And I just kind of said, mom and dad did good providing for their family. At the time, police work didn't pay very well either. So I just decided maybe this is what I should do. Steve, you got to make me think a little bit, growing up in the business, and this is all I've ever known other than 2 or 3 years of trying something different. You talk about people who want to invest in private equity. I'm like, I've been doing this for so long, I can't fathom anybody that'd want to get into this business. But the person who did approach me a couple years ago was exactly that. They were buying up body shops and auto repair tire shops in your area. And I was just like, my CPA told me during COVID that don't plan on this being your retirement because anybody could start a shop right now, as much business as is out there. There's no blue sky to sell. There's no customer list to sell. But I think that's gone away now because we can't find techs. So sometimes I think the shop with the techs are the ones who are going to have the value.
I think this is a great lead in right now because when you're talking about private equity, that was one of the things, obviously the new building for me. But what I learned is that private equity does not want to buy your shop if you can't show that you are not involved every day, that you have processes in place, that you have employees in place. All of those things make a huge difference to private equity. And they do not want to come in and run your shop. They want that shop to be able to run. I also coach for repair shop, and like half of my clients, their succession plan is very vague. We are working on those fundamentals of building system operating procedures so that they can appeal to that private equity buyer. I think that may have been one of the big holdups. If you're the one running the day to day and you sell the business, how long are you going to hang around? That type of thing. So that's why they're worried.
I learned that.
That's interesting.
I've been hands-on the whole time I've been there, in the back, in the shop, part-time in the office, helping service writers. So it's like I've had to take a step back and just get the right people in place, which has been cool because now my wife and I can take off and leave for long weekends or a day here and there. And it's as good as it's ever been for us.
And if you're talking about a buyer, if you are the day-to-day of your shop and you say, okay, we make this much money, they know right off the bat that there's things that get buried in a business and that you're not paying yourself what you should do. So right away, they're going to take $150,000 right off the table and say, we're going to have a general manager to run this store in your absence. So now you just devalued your business by that amount. Those are a lot of the things that have to do with private equity, which is where I thought we would go.
And so did you, when you were come up with the plan, did you have it all written out? Part of your coaching, do you make them actually write it out? Is there a Google document or a Word document somewhere that spells out step by step? Or is it more of a rough outline and follow these steps?
Everything is outlined, from how we schedule an appointment, how we answer the phone, workflow for a service advisor, workflow for a technician, where do we road test vehicles. Everything is scripted out. It's like a playbook. That business knows how to run, whether you're there or not. For the first forever, as we've been involved in our businesses, we're the quarterback, we're the head coach, we're the general manager, we're there day to day, and we wave the wands and make it happen. What happens when you step back? Do people know what to do?
I'm just thinking about that. Mike, do you have anything written down of where to do test drives? I find that interesting.
I don't have it written down, but there isn't many options.
All right.
If you want to get up to highway speed.
I was thinking about a test drive. In our town, there's railroad tracks. There's right turns versus left turns when you're leaving the business.
Yeah.
Accidents happen on the left. Like when you think about it, if a guy leaves on a road test and he doesn't show up for a minute, where is he? Where are you going to find him? Or do you go on your test track? There's a short track, there's a long track. It may sound minor, but like in the day-to-day, that's how it goes down. That's how we find that guy.
That's interesting. And I imagine to a private equity, if you have that level of detail written down, then they're going to be impressed. They're going to be thinking that you actually have thought through almost everything, right? That's part of the plan. Okay. So are you going to keep that playbook as a backup copy for your son if he wants to sell to private equity in 15, 20 years?
I recently heard something that second generation businesses, the success rate obviously goes down. And then when you go to third generation businesses, the number I heard recently was 11% success rate. So I think that I'm
going to push back on that a little bit. I would think that auto repair industry specifically would have a higher rate than general business. Because you think about the DuPonts of the world, right? You think about the large corporations where the son was basically glad-handed a golden stick. Like that's a whole different part of it. When they get to see their dads working, as opposed to just having everything handed to them because they worked before they were born, I feel like there's a level of stick-to-itiveness that actually passes along. I don't know. It'd be interesting in looking at that same study.
It was a number that I heard, but if you think about it, and I'm guilty of this, and maybe I started it. My son saw me work it.
Yep.
Like Mike, I think I want to do something on my own. I don't want to do this. So he comes into it, and now he's involved in the business, but he's had a different lifestyle than obviously I have. He wants to provide that lifestyle for his kids. Then his kids see it, and they didn't see what it took at the beginning. And I think that's where that number comes from, that disconnect on that third generation. That's a deal breaker. But I think that my son, Scott, needs to be ready at any point that when these people come, he needs to be ready to sell. If the number's right, he needs to be ready to go. And that's all I mean by that. Now, if he decides that he's going to go multi-location and do something completely different, that will be up to him.
Is equity your primary a buyer? Or is that just for today's current market? Why wouldn't you just sell to another independent that wants to stay local?
It would just be, normally when you look at that, what the stats are is that a lot of shops have nothing to sell. So if they're going after it, do they have the money to buy a shop? Because you're talking about 3 times earnings or whatever. Are they going to pay for that if they're a current shop? That would be hard. If the guy can come up with the money, why wouldn't you do that?
Okay.
But big box would be a buyer. If you're a smaller shop, another smaller shop that wants to go multi-location could be a buyer. But no matter what, you got to be prepared for who you're looking for and be able to adapt, I think.
I was talking to a shop in Ohio, and they had 3 locations and sold one of the locations to a different independent. If you have multiple locations, you have that option. Interesting. So you said that your son came back into the picture. Again, how many years ago was it?
Just a couple of years, 2 years
Just
ago.
a couple of years. And how many years was he out of the picture? Not involved at all. He saw you growing up in it, but go ahead.
When he was in high school, he cleaned the shop. He would come in after school sports, clean the shop, but he never was a technician, never worked in the business day to day before he came in his role.
All right. And he's managing, not a technician.
He has learned a ton in a couple of years, but he basically runs the front of the house with his sports background. Like, our morale and our team has never been better because I was a mechanic. I didn't know anything about any of that. So if you didn't do what I said or did it wrong, you got fired. Pretty simple. That had to change.
Yes. I was listening to a podcast just the other day, and they made the comment about how CEOs, and we're CEOs, right? That's the reality. You're running shops, but you're also a CEO. He made a comment about how successful CEOs have the energy and enthusiasm level of professional athletes. I found that very interesting. There are studies out there that show, I was even telling my son who's just getting into tackle football, you've got to get your energy way up at the beginning of every play. Turn it on, turn it off if you have to. You knock them down. After the play's over, you be a good sport, you help them back up. But you better have that energy to get to go at it.
Well, and the resilient, too. As you say, in the sports world, a lot of times, because Lee has a long history at football play, you have to have that grit and determination, the resilience. It's all like one big ball of wax.
So, Mike, you said that you changed the direction of law enforcement back to the shop with a young family. Is there any chance that your son or daughter might want to join the family business?
No interest.
But right now, with Steve's story, maybe in 10 years, you're young enough. You got another 15, 20 years of working as a mechanic.
No.
Look like a hard ass.
I'm ready. I'm basically thinking 8 years from now and I'm going to be done. So
Okay.
either I'll be in Steve's situation where I'll be hopefully remote 95% of the year.
Okay.
Someone else will own it.
As listeners are listening to this, and we've got all different size shops and stuff like that. One thing that was interesting, if you don't know what your succession plan is, it's never come up yet, but what about the guy in the shop? Is there an employee in the shop that can take over? Typically, what's happened in the industry is those guys are not great savers, and you've got to carry the paper. That becomes a very big issue. I've talked to a lot of people. I was working with a guy the other day, and he worked at the shop until 7 years ago when he bought it. He'd worked at the shop for 11 years. One of the questions that I propose to people is, if you're not sure how you sell this shop, it's a 2-3 bay shop, you've worked your whole life there, it has value, but maybe you can't get paid for it. When you're interviewing people and you're talking to people that come on board, or when you check in with your employees and you ask for a 5-year plan, have we listened to a guy that says, well, I'd like to own my shop in 5 years?
That's interesting.
Nobody ever asked that, but on an interview, like if you're going to hire this guy and he wants to own his shop in 5 years, maybe there's nobody else out there in the shop that you would trust it to, but you've got an idea in the back of your head. This is a potential buyer right here that I'm about to hire. So I think we need to pull that into our current team, and then anybody we're looking to hire, what are their goals down the road? So just something out there.
Yeah. And if you're not selling within the next 5 or so years, I don't know. It goes back to the hiring podcasts that we've talked about. And Steve, I think you were part of one of those episodes about maintaining or retaining top talent. But when I'm thinking about hiring somebody, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I kind of want to hire the person that wants to go out on their own because I know they're motivated and they're going to work hard. And I like the work ethic that comes with that. I might lose them in 3 years to something else. But it's going to be a great 3 years. So let's go forward with. But as Steve said, maybe this is part of the succession plan. Now, listen, just full disclosure, I did not prep Steve for that, Kelly and Lee. He did not know about your situation, your story. Why don't you share a little bit, if you don't mind, about the employee?
We've been developing our succession plan for a long time, probably about 19 years. A second in command definitely knows everything. Every time you move from one location to another, as an owner, to a mentor, to now building a second in command, you have to change a seat. You're going to be moving out of one space, which creates a vacuum that, pulls another in. Once you have all those things in place, you feel like you're moving down the path. All of a sudden the discussions come, and we've done some of the testing as far as, what you want to do. And just to your point, Steve, sometimes they don't do great saving and sometimes they do. You have people that will save and they're ready and they want to be ready before you're maybe ready. And then all of a sudden when you're ready, they may not have what it takes as far as the financial backing to do that. You have to know exactly what it is that you're willing to do as part of your succession plan. Plan carefully. Know if you're willing to finance or hold the paper, or if you want to do cash out and move on, and really weigh the options and see what works for you. You can do both and be successful with both. It's just a matter of what it is that you are going to be doing outside, because you're no longer now part of the business, managing your life.
In our case, we had two people. Both of them have been at our shop for 20 plus years. We talked many years about this succession situation. On Lee and I's end, we thought, for argument's sake, we were talking about it for 10 years. That seems like a long time. Seems like they would be saving along the way. Seems like they would have seen what we've been doing and maybe learning by example.
We put it out there that we were going to be selling in the next 2 to 3 years.
We're age appropriate to be selling. I'm 64, Lee's 62.
Nah.
We thought we would throw it out there. We started peeling back the curtain as far as where our business stood, what they would have to do as business owners instead of as a service manager and ATech diagnostician. We started becoming very transparent with them as far as the numbers and what it takes to make that number. And if they wanted to grow that number, what kind of work they would have to put in as far as growing car count and that kind of thing, and how we've done that along the way. And come to find out, one's ready and one's not. And the one that is ready can't do it alone. So we're back in, right? So it's a whole whirlpool. And it involved quite a few people and quite a few family and wives and lifestyle. So you really have to be dialed in. And it doesn't always work smooth. And that's okay. It just means that we had to pivot, like Lee was talking about earlier, and being okay with pivoting and change. And, Lee's a worker, ready to work and go for it, right? He's ready to get up every day and give it 150%. As we became closer, we thought that it was going to change hands. I thought, I'm ready. I'm ready to spend time with our grandchildren. And then I had to sort of get over my hissy fit. I was there. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'd run my marathon. I thought I was going to get the glass of ice water and my award and go home and be done. And I had a little hissy fit. So I had to get over it and get back in it. And we're working hard again.
And the best part about that is, I would say this to everybody, it is not a bad thing to refocus, to look at your original plan, learn from it, then refocus and make a really solid plan for what you want to do. Now, there's very little that we don't know as far as what we're trying to do, when we want to accomplish here, what time frames they want to come in. The reality of it is, we've had several people that have approached us now and said, hey, we see what you're doing here. We like this. We like that. Steve, you were talking about earlier, how do you make your business attractive? Build it. That's how you make it attractive. Don't worry about who's going to buy it. Conglomerates come together and want to get your location just because it is in that location. You know what I mean? They're buying 60 shops and saying, we want one here, we want one there. Kelly's trying to control my hand because I speak with the hand.
And
The truth of the matter is, when they come in and look at your books and they can see that you have really solid foundation, good customer, good clientele, now this is where the discussions, and Kelly said this is where it gets hard, is where you really want to now talk about your people and build your people and say, listen, there's a reason why we're doing this, and it's because of the relationships. It's because of the way that we have built our foundation with not only our internal customers, which is our employees, but also with our external customers. Makes a huge difference.
all right, first and foremost, feel free to speak with your hands.
I
I remember the first video recording. I actually got a headache because I was watching my head bounce all over the place because that's what I do, right?
Going in front of him and
Yes.
but
Have at it. Have fun with it. That's fine. No, but you know what? I've got a bunch of different questions, and please, everyone add to these questions. But for the skeptic listening to this podcast, well, I don't know what the equity market is going to look like in 5 years when I want to sell. I don't know whether banks are going to be loaning money in 5 years or whether they're going to be holding back like they are currently. I don't know. There's so many other variables. The buyer, but the prospective employee whose spouse has a change of heart or gets a divorce, and now their entire world is also upside down. So why bother planning at all? And
that's there's a slippery slope, Brad, don't you?
But Brad,
that's why I want to address it. Let's talk about it. All right, let's do a round robin.
here's what for the skeptic up, there are some time-honored traditions that have always been, and that is, if you have a chance to buy, meaning if you have a chance to buy your facility or the property or whatever, buy it. Don't lease it. Don't rent it. Buy it. And the reason why is because you don't have to worry about those other market things that you were talking about.
You get a little bit more flexibility.
Your own assets.
It's even more elementary than that. Are all of us parents on this podcast, I would expect, yes?
Yeah.
When is it a good time to have a baby? For heaven's sakes, it's never a good time to have a baby. So buy your business.
Okay, I'm going to speak to the cultural norms real quick of waiting till you're older to get married. I was in my 40s with my young one, and it was painful. But I pulled all-nighters in my 20s with no problems at all. It was no big deal. In my 40s, it was painful. So I recommend families get started early. God bless them. Steve, it looked like you had something to say to the skeptic as well. Come on, dude.
Here's one thing. When we're talking about employees that bring it along, my son obviously is not a mechanic. So mechanics do what we did and know that we can answer any question on our business definitely gives us a trump card. Now we got somebody who doesn't have that, who cannot fix that car. I have a key employee, technician, that I've given some ownership to. When he gets ownership in the business, if you're willing to give a piece of that away, that means when the business sells, he would get a piece. In the meantime, he is myself for the business. For the next 15 years, the way I set it up with this guy, I've got key man insurance on him, life insurance on him. He will have 15% ownership in the business. And whether I sell it, he's going to get that money. Or if he would go to buy it, now he can go to the bank and say, hey, I already own 15% of this company. That makes him a lot more appealing to a bank so that you don't have to carry the paper.
Wait, did you do that through stock option? Is in order for him to go?
I have a setup with him where I use my attorney to set it up. The stock was a little different because doing an asset sale versus stock sale can complicate things for other buyers. So you got to be careful with that. This is a contract that basically says that until 5 years, he's not fully vested because obviously he would have to pay taxes on income that he's not in that point. So I think that's a way to look into if you have that key player, how do we get him involved as an owner so that we could step back?
That we can do it in phases or do it in
phases. Exactly.
Mike, you've been quiet for a little bit. What do you have to say to the skeptic? Are you the skeptic? Okay.
I'm the skeptic.
Talk to us about that.
A wise man once said to me, how we deal with Plan B defines who we are. I've tried to adopt that to the point it's not going to go the way I think it will in my head. So I got to be able to roll with the punches. And like you guys mentioned, you got to be ready no matter what happens moving forward is the key.
Interesting. So we talked about being very detailed oriented when it comes to mapping out the plan. And Steve, you even mentioned where we're even going for test drives in the plan. And you talked about how by having a plan and showing that you don't have to be there to run it makes it more attractive to another buyer. I guess where I'm going is how do you come up with a very specific plan? You just created 35 different potential branches, right? How do you come up with that specific of a plan when you full well know that the banks might not be loaning money at that particular time? Do you have all these extra contingencies written out? Have you coached people, Steve, as far as writing those succession plans?
They're constantly working on it. The main thing, and somebody said it earlier, is that your job as the owner is to get that business ready to sell. I think that has to be step one. The options will come to you, and then you're going to have to get professional help. Am I going to sell it internally? Am I going to sell it to private equity? Am I going to sell it to another shop? They all look different, but am I prepared to do that at all? If you say, well, I've been working my butt off in this shop my whole life, it's ready to go. Well, if I come in and look at it, is it organized? Is there a set workflow? Are there people that have been around that can hold people accountable? Is there management in place? Is it like, if not, I just really could build right next to him and put him out of business. So why would I buy that shop? That may be a little arrogant, but you got to be that prepared. And when it's time, like if you said, I'm out, obviously that was made real easy when I have a son that's willing to come into the business. But if not, I had a couple offers. I would have had to start getting all my ducks in a row so I could go to them and say, hey, I'm ready. And then be prepared for them to peel you down and tell you what you're not worth.
Yeah, I think when we were speaking, Brad, when I was on the podcast last, I was telling you that we'd probably get to this point in time in this podcast with the succession in that the planning along the way include a lot of, like Steve was saying, the legal teams, having your org chart put in place where is if somebody moves up, you can know where those spots are that need to be filled in. It's knowing not to implicate your people or whoever the buyer is, if it's an internal person with tax liability that they weren't looking to have happen. It's such an intricate little piece of the puzzle, and trying to fit all of them in at the right time is really tricky. When I say that we're back in and we're working hard, maybe what somebody wants to do is live a lifestyle like Lee and I. I say we're working hard, but here we are in Hawaii. So maybe that's the lifestyle that somebody wants who's internal. Maybe they don't want to be burdened with the ownership, but they want to have increase in lifestyle. So you really need to be open to all ways that it can happen for you.
I think the fun part about your question was you have so many variables that you kind of have to plan for. And the best part about it is we're already used to that. Steve said it so perfectly that I'll just try to reiterate it the way that I heard it. And that is, this is a live animal that we're working with. This is something that is constantly changing. And what happens is you get your standard operating procedures in place. You get your organizational chart replaced. You find out where the people are. He talked about having his son come in who has no mechanical ability, not necessarily ability, but no mechanical awareness. Let's call it that. And yet, he has so many other qualities that are going to be great gifts for the business, because he doesn't have that. There's another person to fill in for Steve when Steve's not there. I'm assuming that's going to be his shop foreman or whatever the case may be, whatever label you would put on it. But if there is a mechanical question, guess what? You have now your service advisor, your manager, they can refer him to the shop foreman. That builds a camaraderie with the customer. I mean, there's so many just bonuses and benefits, but that's a live thing. And that's something that was well thought out ahead of time. It's not that hard, and it can all be adaptable. The beautiful thing is, the reason why you make plans like business plans, you make a business plan for what purpose? So you can understand how to grow and manipulate the business to where you want it. You make plans for the shop so that you can build it to be able to sell it, so that when somebody takes it over, it can be seamless. It can just operate the same way, whether you're there or not.
Okay. Live animal. You described succession planning and the business planning as a live animal. You probably have to feed certain times of the day or certain day. You have to do some grooming. There are certain ongoing care. So let's talk a little bit about, because if someone's listening in, they might be getting some pressure in their chest, thinking about this large document you have to create. The answer is you just start with a half sheet of paper and you do it once, a week, a month?
One bite at a time.
No, I'm asking, how often are you feeding this animal? How often do you go back and build on that plan? You don't have to have an entire plan tomorrow. You just need to have a document that you started and then with some regularity. So that's my question. Mike, how often do you recommend, or Steve or Kelly or Lee, tell me, how often should I be going back as a shop owner to manage or adjust this plan? Quarterly, annually, daily?
I think there's a couple things you said that for procedures. I think you got to visit that every 6 months and rewrite those. As far as the plan goes, I can tell you there was no timeline on it, but with my shop foreman, we are in year 3 of that, and we've rewritten that at least 3 times already. Because as we get into it, and I'm talking with my accountant or somebody else, there are those tax liability questions. There's those other things that I don't want to burden him with. I didn't know about. It will evolve, but again, we're not selling the business tomorrow. This should be a plan later on if we sold the business or if he decided in 15 years that he wanted to buy it. So those things you constantly are moving about.
But like Mike was saying not too long ago, he's looking at 8 years. So maybe you say your 8-year time frame and then you start dialing back the tasks. That gives you a great roadmap on how to get to the 8 years and have success. Now, Mike, know that in 8 years, your best laid roadmap might have a detour and take you to the next left, right? So I think it's...
So maybe plan for 6 years. That way you have a 2-year detour route.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Mike, I don't even know, do you have, what written processes, if any, do you have currently in place? And listen, you're at home. I would imagine that the majority of shops across America do not have written out plans. Steve, you're a coach. You could probably agree that a lot of them don't have written out plans. So you're in good company, Mike. Don't worry about that. But what do you have in place? What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Not much. We're such a small shop in comparison to what you guys are doing. I basically just try to train my techs, the service writers, of how things should be done. They know what I expect, but it's not written down. I was told I need to work less in the shop and more on the shop as an owner. I still turn some wrenches. Matter of fact, today, guy had to stay home because couldn't get a babysitter for his kids. So I was flying all over the shop trying to get everything done before I had to start this. And we'll be going back as soon as I get done here. That's what I do. I fill in when other guys can't be there. I work with them so close.
Yeah. No, those.
You're right. So that I don't have to work with them so close.
Can I make a suggestion that it's going to be a real easy one for you, Mike? Start using video. There's a lot of power in that. When you're training someone, record. Because it's as good as having it written down. You can go back and edit it. You can review it. The next time you want to train somebody, let the video do it for you. Really maximize your time.
If you want it written out, it is so easy to use Grok or ChatGPT or a dozen other AI programs. You upload the video to them and they will transcribe it for you. So just hold up your phone or have someone else hold the phone or spend $15 on Amazon for a tripod and mount the phone when you go do the training.
And it really, this goes way back, but wasn't too long ago somebody asked the question, like when I opened the shop because I thought I was a great mechanic and do it better than anybody I'd worked for, right? And I'd learned all these things and I was going to do it. I never thought what the end looked like at the beginning. And there's so many shop owners, I think, that are going to be in the same boat that you never had a closure plan. Like at some time, you're not going to be able to fix cars anymore. You're going to pass. What does the end look like? And I think that's key, that anybody who's in a shop right now that is talking about, well, what do I do with this thing later? First, come up with that idea. In your perfect world, what does it look like? If you're going to try to start making a plan, like just start right there. And then the pieces that need to be put in place along the way, there's opportunity to get help with those. But know that if you're within 5 years, or like Mike says, he's within 8 years, all the things that you do in business, like your car, vacations, credit card stuff, you have to clean all those things up. So you have to have a great accountant to tell you how to get the business numbers ready to sell, how to get your processes. Then it comes back to all that. But what's that vision look like? What does it really look like? I mean, do you want to have 2 locations, 3 locations? Are you just going to build a shop from 3 bays to 8 bays to 12 bays? You know, what are you going to do?
You could always double the number of bays that you have now just by doing 2 shifts from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then you don't need any more space. We actually had a podcast episode back in March of 2024 about working on the shop instead of in the shop. One of the comments that came up, and I think Mike's is in a very common place, where the shop owner who is trying to work more on the shop instead of in the shop ends up being a utility player. And going back to the sports metaphor, when someone is not there, they're doing that role. So Steve, what do you think of, and Mike, have you considered this? What do you think of hiring specifically someone who is a utility player, who can just, he has this role, but when this other person is out, they fill it, whoever is out, they fill in just like the owner currently does?
My first thing would be that might be a step backwards, because when we say we want to work on the business instead of in it, one of the things that I had to do to get myself kind of removed is come up with what jobs you do. These could be jobs from cleaning the bathroom, filling in as a service advisor, fixing a car, road testing a car with a customer. When you're talking about your organizational path, like Lee did, you have to have somebody assigned to that every day. If they're not there, who steps up to the plate that day when they're not there? I think that's more important than just put another person on payroll, if I understood right, to be this utility player that will flow. He might as well, and that's why I say take a step back, he might as well own a place, because that's kind of what we've trained ourselves to do, is whatever it takes, I'm going to just do it. Instead of...
Mike, the wheels are turning.
We've always run lean with our staff because it's just so uncertain when the work's going to be there. You never know.
Okay.
I mean, our schedule is at the most booked out 2 days.
Okay.
But it just keeps filling in, and we have a lot of drop-in stuff. We cater to the customer who needs it now. We've always been so focused on customer service that we've kind of created our own beast. People expect it, but we hate to disappoint customers. Small town word gets around.
You've trained your customers to wait until the last minute
Yeah.
to do things. That might be more than just a marketing thing, right? There might be some marketing elements to acquire new customers and train them differently from the start with some sort of offer. I think there's a bigger piece to talk about as far as how to retrain your customers. It's been my experience that when you have to retrain your customers, you sometimes lose customers. You have to be sensitive to that. Sometimes losing the wrong customers is better than keeping them.
Because we're a tire shop, right? You have a flat tire, you're not going to schedule it 3 or 4 days out to get it done.
No, of course not.
So they come in and say, can you fix my tire? Everybody else is busy. So guess who's fixing the tire? Well, it's me. I'm the utility player you were talking about. Man, that's okay, because we want to be of that service because that's what we've chosen. But then it kind of goes on beyond that. It's just like, oh, I've got a turn signal out, or all these little things that people just can't see waiting 2 or 3 days on the schedule for.
And if I don't have working lights in my car, I don't want to wait 2 weeks, right?
No, I mean,
there's plenty of shops out there that have a 2-week fill. But I think there's a balance where you can, and Steve, maybe you have some thoughts on this. This is actually kind of going away from succession planning, but at the same time, maybe not. Because if you can show your next buyer that the business is not going to go out of business by Friday because you're only 2 days out, right? You've got more scheduled in the books. I would think that would actually increase the value, or make it more attractive, at least, to someone who is buying it.
I think they'll see that in your customer base. They'll see that in how many visits a year they're going to do. They're going to look at all those numbers. Being able to step in, I think that's seriously, for Mike or any owner listening, to step back. Those are great examples. We never think about it. We hire technicians, we hire a service writer, but when that happens, who's supposed to stop, drop, and roll for this customer that we know we have to do? Like, we're in customer service business. We just don't fix cars. Some people, I've heard it referred to as the hospitality business. That's what we are in. So we need to develop that position. Is that a porter? Is that a apprentice? Is that a general service technician? A guy that does oil changes and cross lines and does those things? But those duties are going to be put on him and not on Mike, the owner, or not on my main service advisor, because those guys are busy. Those guys have their tasks to take care of. So I think it goes back to the organizational and operating procedures to get that in place. And if you're not sure what that looks like, every business is different. I mentioned that I coach along the way, but I've been part of different coaching things and go to seminars with all kinds of people to get these ideas that get put in my head. reach out in this industry. There's tons of people that you can use as resources to get yourself on a level playing field so you have time to work on the business. You have time to make these decisions.
Deep breath from Mike for those that are not seeing the camera. Okay. Yeah. So it's not one utility. Back to the question I had. It's not one utility player. It's what is the role? And like you said, maybe it is a level C tech or someone else, but it depends. You don't have one person doing it all because, as you said, that actually is replacing you as the owner.
So like a job description, I worked on one the other day for my customer service rep. I used to have them do waiter oil changes, and their job is to handle that walk-in customer that wants to check engine light, their tire fixed, the headlight or wiper blades, whatever. The customer service rep is to handle that, not the service advisor. So what does that look like? I was in there re-scripting what the customer service position looks like. You have your general technician or your lube tech. What is his job descriptions? This is it. Service advisor knows who to go to.
Like I want to jump in, Steve. Hold on. Steve, I want to jump in. I want to push back a little bit on that, if that's okay. Because Mike already said up front that he operates very lean. It's a 6-bay shop. And so the idea of him having multiple service advisors and a CSR is no longer lean. Mike, how many people do you have at the front desk? Okay. And so with what you're saying, what Steve's saying, he would have to add a third to be a CSR so that the full-blown service advisors can keep advising small stuff.
Or just delegate within.
We're saying that the two of them would handle the small stuff going forward.
Right.
So you're saying a CSR would be in the office, but also doing the repairs?
In our application, a customer service rep, like to get the initial check-in, handle appointment scheduling, answering of the phone, handling people that walk in, checking people out at the end of the day. We can have 600 cars a month. You can have 20, 30 cars a day. Like everybody coming in at 4:30, 5 o'clock, you have to have that. If you know your car count and the people you have in there, what happens when somebody walks in the door and wants their tire fixed? One of those two service advisors is going to direct the lube technician that he's going to pause on his oil change right now and handle this tire repair because we run lean. So instead of you jumping through hoops as the owner, do we have to compensate him more? That's what you have to decide. Who's going to handle that duty for him? So I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You're right. We did kind of go off the path of succession planning, but not completely. One of the things that we said earlier was a good succession plan means that you don't have to be there on a daily basis doing all these little things. This actually is on a broader scale, part of succession planning because you're making sure that you aren't critical to the day-to-day. That's not going to happen overnight. That's going to happen in phases and in little bits and pieces. That's why this is a live animal and not, I printed it out. We're going to do this from now on. Like you need to phase towards it in baby steps. You know the movie I'm talking about? What about Bob? Do you remember the movie from like 30 years ago or more? A movie called with Bill Murray, Baby Steps to the Office, Baby Steps. So it was small steps. You don't have to conquer the mountain tomorrow. You've got to move the ball forward a little bit. Let's see how many more analogies we could throw in there. If somebody was going to acknowledge that they don't have a good succession plan and start with a clean slate, Steve, what is the first sentence that they're going to put on that paper? Where do they start?
I think it would probably be that question that I said earlier, like, what does it look like? How many years do I want this to happen in? Who am I?
Sorry, so it starts with the time. Step number one is, when do you want out? And then you back yourself into it that way. And then as far as the details go, is one of the top of the list making sure that you're replaceable? Or is the top of the list financing and dealing with coming up with a plan for the money side of things?
If you're the owner, I think the first thing you need to do is get yourself removed from day-to-day operations. If somebody else is going to buy it, they can come in, and if they choose to buy my shop and they choose that they want to be the head service advisor, that's their prerogative. But they can just buy this business and it will run with the people that are in place. I think you need to get close to that because besides the guy coming from within, a mechanic is going to now own the business. If he is going to step back and take out his day-to-day duties, first of all, he has to hire a mechanic and put his self in a different role, right? So I think that is the next issue, is get yourself removed from day-to-day so you are out of the equation as far as how the business runs.
And I think maybe one way to consider that maybe on a weekly basis. So what roles did I do this week that weren't my normal duties that I had to fill in for? And you just make a list. And then when it comes time to do your succession planning, you've got a starting point that you need to address each one of those, right? That might be a possible tangible idea to put into play. Interesting.
That was a technique I used as I was putting this together. I asked people to write down for a month, what do you do every day that you come to work? Technicians, service advisors, everybody, so that I understood what they were doing and how to get those things filled. It's a great exercise to lead into an employee meeting. What do you do every day? And then there's some things you don't want them doing. You'll find all these things out. If you do it for yourself, you're going to find out what you need to replace. Very great exercise.
Have to hire somebody to mow the grass.
Exactly.
Clean the windows.
Yeah. Lately, I've been doing a lot of work on the building, make the workflow better, more strategy there. Is like, who thinks about those things? The techs don't, the service writers don't. Who thinks about how does flow work?
The grass cutting example. Guy comes to buy your business, looks at your balance sheet and your P&L, and he looks at it, and there's no line item for grass cutting. So now your business shows it makes this bottom line, but I got to pay $100 a month to get my grass cut for 6 months of the year. They're going to devalue it by $600, like your net, because they're not cutting the grass. You may want to cut the grass, but they're not cutting the grass. So who cleans the shop?
Yeah.
If you're going to hire a professional cleaning, that's going to cost you money. If it's not on your expense line, they're going to add it there and say, you make that money, but I'm going to hire a cleaning service. I'm going to hire a lawn service because my mechanics aren't going to do it. And I'm certainly not going to do it. So that's exactly how you prepare yourself looking at your numbers.
What other things would they hire for? Would a private equity firm or a large chain hire for that
the owner
you're
does.
possibly doing?
Right.
Marketing?
That's why you write them down.
And they're going to be different for every shop. That's why you have to go through that exercise. It's not just here's the list. Okay. All right. So, and you're in the process of, like you talked about your son and whatnot. You're away currently from the shop, Steve. How long have you been? When's the last time you were actually at the shop?
I came back, I think it was the end of July. I came back. I was home for 10 days. I came down July 1st. I went back for 10 days, did some things, and then came back here and have been away for 20 days.
All right. And in some ways, are you strength testing your succession plan? Do you see it that way or no?
I think it's a great test, but just the other day I was working on this customer service rep stuff. So I'm still communicating as the owner with my Byron, talking with employees. I have our management system that I can see and still working on it. So even though I'm away, I'm still doing those things that people say you're working on the business versus in.
Okay. All right. Mike, do you have clear next steps on what you're going to do with your succession planning? Is now that you tried to sell a couple of years ago, if I recall correctly, what are you going to do differently between now and the next time you go to sell?
I think the policies and procedures in place is definitely the next step. I've kind of known it all along, but have been pushing it back. In order to have the time to do it, I'm going to have to start delegating what I do in a day's time.
Are you going to start with that list? Are you going to start by writing down?
That's a good exercise. I like that idea.
All right. And how often are you doing the training with describing the processes or what you expect from people? Does that happen on a weekly basis where you're doing some sort of process training with your staff?
Like I said, I work hand in hand with them. And if it's something that needs to be known across the board, every Friday morning we have meetings where we have coffee, donuts, and a break. And then we go over some of that stuff. But it's all verbal. It's not written down, which probably should be so that it's documented.
Now, again, in today's technology and world, just set up a phone, put it on record, let everyone know that you're recording, and you can run that through an AI program to get an actual written transcript. You can delete the jokes or side comments and keep the core of it as the key. A lot of the meetings that we have with our customers at AA Shop Marketing, we record them in a Google Meet or something like that, and we have a recorder on. It's a great way to relay to the team what needs to happen. We've even developed content that way with people. So it's a great tool. It's a good time to be alive. It makes it a little bit easier than it was. You don't have to worry about writing a 50-page document tomorrow. That's very positive. All right. Forgive me if I'm overreaching, Mike, but if I call you back in 30 days, can I get a report from you as far as how these things are going?
I won't answer.
Okay. I love it. All right, good. We are all about truth.
I work with a coach like Steve also, and she calls me every Monday. Some days I just hate to take the call because I know what she's going to ask. Have you done your homework?
May I ask who you use for your coach?
Her name's Charlene.
Okay.
We're not quite a year
Steve,
in.
Okay. I've heard stories of people who are in groups where they come to each other's shop and they tear it apart. Not physically. Steve's nodding his head. When I heard about that, I was taken back a little bit. I was like, wow, you better have some thick skin for that. But I bet you it's pretty helpful. So Steve, you're nodding your head. You want to share any thoughts around that technique?
20 years ago, I was involved in a 20 group across the United States, and every quarter we'd go to somebody else's shop and tear it down, meet on it from all aspects. I think seeing it from your peers, because I can walk around my shop and everything's perfect, right? It's just the way I want it. And then somebody else looks at it and says, that's messy.
Why are you doing that?
And then, they put you on that hot seat, and you do have to, you can take it or not take it. I mean, I think it's a great tool if you could be part of a 20 group, because you never learn more than from your peers.
And that's what I'm doing right here today.
And here's the thing, Mike, it seems like you tried to sell it a couple of years ago and you're like, I need to do that. Like 90% of the people I talk to, that's it. That's what we were programmed to in this business, is not to think about how we get, but I can look at you. You got no family that wants to do it. So what are you supposed to do? Just lock it up one day and it's over? I think a lot of technicians that became shop owners are in the exact same ballgame. And we have something very valuable. Private equity would not be looking our direction if they did not see good numbers in this business. So I think it's like redirecting time. And anybody that's listening to this podcast, today you got to fix that car to get paid. But how are you going to get paid from the time you're 60 till the day you leave the earth, or 70 till the day you leave? How do you get paid like that? So I think it's definitely worth thinking about, putting a lot of time into it.
I agree with you, Steve. I think we offer a service that it's getting harder and harder to find good techs. So we offer a service to the people. Less people are wanting to do it. Cars are not able to DIY anymore without the right tools and equipment. It kind of feels like a plumber, right? Plumbers are making big money nowadays because nobody wants to get into the field and do it. So they're charging accordingly. It's a lucrative business, automotive repair and plumbing. Who's willing to do it, right?
And back to dog plumbers, but a plumber's tools are still in a bucket. Like ours are changing all the time, right?
That's fair.
But plumbers have always had their tools in a bucket. It hasn't changed. Cars are changing. Here's the thing. What if you had all those procedures in place and the place was the greatest place to work at? Would we have a technician shortage? It is real, but nobody wants to leave their shop, because if you go talk to your boss, think about it. If he came to you and said, I'm thinking about going to work for XYZ Automotive, well, what are they offering you? Boom, you just offer it to him. He can't leave. I can't afford to lose that guy. Your role is very well defined. Our processes are so well defined that while you're getting your business ready to sell, you're also making it a place that attracts great employees. So it could be twofold there.
Yeah.
I just had someone the other day say they acknowledge there's a shortage in technicians, but there's a greater shortage in leaders, shop owners that are treating their employees in a way that is inviting more technicians into the field. That's where the shortage is. And I found that to be very interesting. One of the topics that I'm thinking about is how different shop owners from across the country are dealing with this shortage issue, not just for their shop, but for the industry in general. There's a couple people that I've talked to from around the country, and I've heard some really interesting stories. They're actually adding mechanics beyond just their shop. And here's what they're doing. And they're doing different things. And I thought that was I'm hoping to have them on and have that discussion to continue to get people to think about this. But it's reasonable to say, yeah, how can we make our shop more attractive, right? How can you make your shop more attractive? You are the example to the other shops in your area, right? You're the leader in that shop area. And until then, you're going to be attracting those employees because you've got the better place to work. Money is a factor, but let's face it, people leave jobs because of their boss or their work environment. So, okay, I talked about what we might do on another future episode. I always like to ask the question, what other topics might be of interest for future podcasts? When you're listening to this podcast, what are some topics you would like to hear other shop owners talk about?
I think the technician shortage is a great topic and all the different ways to handle that. Something we talked about is how, when, and why are system operating procedures important? How do you do that? If you're working in the business every day, you're exhausted at 6 o'clock, you're not going to go home and write an SOP and come back and teach it to your people. You're going to open the door and start answering the phone. So how do you get those done? Though I think that would be a good topic. It's mission critical for an automotive business.
Is that last topic that you just gave, is it more than just
what are
decide
SOPs?
that you're going to work remote for 1 hour a week and that's what you're doing?
Or lock yourself in your office, but what are SOPs and how to decide which ones you need and how to put them in place?
Okay.
I think that's the topic that would apply to me directly now after this last hour, is like somebody like Steve or other owners who have done it, put it in place.
Yeah.
What topics are we covering in these procedures and policies? Everyone's are going to be different according to their shop. I understand that. For me, it's just like, where do I start? I know I've heard examples of different SOPs that people have for their technicians and their service writers, but I'm sure I'm going to forget some. Or is it just like, as it comes up, you do it? That would be an interesting topic for me.
I appreciate that. We also talked about bringing on 3 different people using 3 different CRMs. We've done that once before. And when I asked that question at the end of that episode, they said they would like to hear 3 other shop owners from 3 other CRMs on how they're using that to grow or interact with their customer base. So that might be something to kick around as well. That's also very similar to the SOP because that's just one chapter of the SOPs, how you're using your CRM. This has been great. I really appreciate your time. I know, Mike, I need to race back to the shop to get back to things because of the employee shortage. But thank you. I appreciate it very, very much.
It's been a pleasure.
And if you're listening to this, we do have a Facebook community. It's small, but it's growing. And what I'm trying to encourage people to do is to go out to the Garage Grit Podcast Community Facebook page. If you're a shop owner, I'll let you in. The goal is to continue the conversation. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing if somebody had a specific question about succession planning, you'd be willing to hop in and answer them and point them in the right direction.
Right.
All right. So there you have it. It's a scenario where we could talk about succession planning with 25 other questions for the next 6 hours. We have to get back to our regular jobs. And so, but we can continue that inside that Facebook group. By all means, check it out. And these episodes, these shop owners panel, these SOPs happen once a month. And so pay attention to that. If you aren't getting them or notified of them, that's because you haven't clicked or subscribed to whatever platform you're on, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And so fix that. Get notified. Pay attention. We're actually dropping episodes with our Origin and Impact series on a regular basis. Those are one-on-one interviews with shop owners to hear their stories. So by all means, check that out. Last but not least, we're going to be launching a 3rd type of podcast, same podcast platform, same channel, where we get to hear from different vendors who are referenced in these shop owner panels. We're looking forward to sharing some of those insights as well. Thank you for listening. And Guy, Steve, Mike, Lee, and Kelly, thank you for attending. We appreciate your time. I'll see you around soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.